It is Vlogmas day 21. I've already lit the advent candle because I've already tried to film this once and got all tongue-tied. So we'll start again. Today I am doing my list of my favourite books from 2020. I've had a really good reading year. I think at the minute I'm up to book 175 and my Goodreads goal was actually 85 books, so I have done really well. I've got a list of 16 here, but within those 16 there are groups of books as well, because some of them I just couldn't pick between. So we might as well start. I've got a mixture of contemporary fiction, middle grade, YA, and then a couple of thrillers interspersed there. That's what the majority of them are. So number 16, I've got Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. She's an Australian writer. This book focuses on parents in a school, how the children are interacting, how the parents interact. Quite a few of the parents have got secrets. There's a new parent who comes in, and it's that dynamic of how she's introduced to people and who takes her under the wing. It's a bit, like I said, it's a bit dark in places, but yeah, it's quite sinister in parts, and there's quite a shock ending. But I really enjoyed it. I started to watch the Netflix. Well, I don't even know if it's on Netflix anymore, but it was on Netflix with Reese Witherspoon and Nicole Kidman. But because it was a little bit sinister in parts when I read the book, I don't know, it just put me off watching it. So I might give it another go when I get a chance. I think Andy might like it actually. I might ask him if he fancies watching it with me. So that was that one. 15 was 10 Blind Dates by Ashley Elston. I know I read this like on the first or second day of January this year, because I remember being in a hotel in Wigan, me and Andy, for the night, and I had that with me. Basically that, a girl who goes on 10 blind dates over Christmas. It's a family who've picked each of the dates for her. And it was just a nice story. I much preferred that to the 12 Dates of Christmas. That was the one that I had really high hopes for, and I read this month and really disappointed. I needed it to be more like 10 Blind Dates. So yeah, that was a good one. Next is the collection that I've put is School for Good and Evil series. I actually give the first one 4, and then I've read another 2, and they've both been 5 stars. It's basically about Agatha and Sophie. One goes to the School for Good and Evil, one goes to the School for Good, one goes to the School for Evil, and they're in battle with each other all the time because one wanted to be in the opposite school and it didn't work out that way. So yeah, I've really been getting into these. I need to carry on with the series. It's the chunkiness of them that's been putting me off while I'm trying to do TBRs. So we'll see how we go, because February is my Scrabble and self-care month where I'm picking my books, so maybe I should pick the next one of these and just go for it. So yeah, loved those. That's by Soman Chainani. If I said that already, I don't know. 13 on the list is the Lucy Foley books. I couldn't pick between the two, the Guest List and the Hunting Party. I give them the same mark, both 5 stars. I love them both. Basically, you start with there's a murder and you know a murder's happened, but you don't know who's committed the murder. And is it both of them where you don't know who's murdered? Yeah, you don't know who's murdered either. You just know there's been a murder. So all the way through you're thinking, oh, is it them who's been killed? Is it them who's been killed? But also you're thinking, and they've got motives to kill them. It was just dead good. The first one's at a wedding. The second one's a reunion of friends that come together every year and go away, and they go to this cottage. So well worth a go. I'm always wary with thrillers now because some of them trigger me a bit. But I found these ones okay. So yeah, if she brings anything else out, I will be picking it up. Next on the list is Your Perfect Year by Wiebke Lorenz. I read this for Germany in my Eurovision Eurovisionathon. I believe it's been translated into English. And so I just happened to look through Scribd, I think it was Scribd, one day looking for a book to do with Germany, and that came up and I loved it. It's basically about a woman whose husband has depression and she comes up with a diary for him of something each year for him to have a go at to cheer him up. It's quite a sad book in places, but it's uplifting in parts. So I would tread carefully if depression, anxiety, suicide, any of those things trigger you. I'd have a think about it. It's still an uplifting book, but there's still parts of that in it, so you have to bear that in mind. But this was an absolute joy because when I say I didn't have much hope for it, for Eurovisionathon, it's about reading around the countries. So for me, it was more important to find a book for that country. And I was going in blind because I was picking books that I'd never heard of, especially on Scribd. I was just picking books for different countries. But it was so good. It was my favourite for Eurovisionathon. I want to say I read 22 or 24 books for Eurovisionathon, and that was the top of my list. So Your Perfect Year. Next on the list is the Holly Jackson books. I've paired them together. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and Good Girl Bad Blood. These are YA thrillers, I'd say. Basically about a girl who starts a project for, is it a school project or college? I can't remember. She looks into a murder case that was closed, and she reopens it and starts looking into it. She, finds evidence and, shares that with the police and things. And then the second one, she decides she's not going to look into things anymore, but then ends up because somebody asked her to. Just really good. Told in emails, diary log entries, podcast episodes in the second one. Just really great. Again, wary of thrillers, but I gave them a go and I'm glad I did. Don't get me wrong, they are eerie in parts, and especially the second one. There's parts of that that's a bit eerie, but yeah, good. Next is a non-fiction book called Self-Help for Your Nerves by Dr. Claire Weekes. I have really struggled with my nerves recently, particularly in the last year or so, and even before lockdown, to be fair. And a counsellor told me about this book. Now, it's one that I pick up regularly now, but I don't read all of it all the time. I have highlighted bits now in pink that I don't know if you can see there. So when I'm struggling, when my anxiety is really bad and I feel quite hopeless at times, I go through and read the highlighted bits, and they do help. There's a section in this on electroconvulsive therapy. I just skipped that. It's quite an old book, but the rest of it is just, and when you read it, sometimes you think, oh, that's quite obvious to think about. But when your mind is in a place where you're really struggling and you can't really see the light, you need reminding of the simple things that you can do. It's just very gentle, and it's talking you through be kind to yourself. It uses the term, rather than thinking of yourself as fighting anxiety, floating on through, and it tells you to float on through, and it's using those terms that's more gentler for your mind. It's just, I found it very helpful. It's worth a try if you're struggling. And it's a book I keep hold of now, and I do tell people about if they say they're struggling with the nerves. And like I say, it was an NHS counsellor, Arnie, who told me about this, and I'm so glad he did. So this is one I'll just keep on my shelf and read regularly when I need it. So there's that one. Next was the Selection series by Kira Cass. I loved listening to these on Scribd. I think there was only one that I physically bought because I was going in for an operation in, I think it was January. I went in for an operation, so I had the physical book and I sat and read that there. But the rest of them, I loved the audio books of them. And there's a Netflix series coming on, so I am dying to watch that when it comes out. So loved all of those. Next is A Sprinkle of Sorcery by Michelle Harrison. This is a middle grade. I read this for Middle Grade Monthly. If you look on Vlogmas Day 19, you will see me rating my Middle Grade Monthly books. A few of them made it onto this list because I love them that much. I watched the live show with Jade and Gav last night, where they talked about the rankings of the 12 books that they'd read. So that was fun. This is about three sisters, the Withershins sisters. And it's just talking about magic. They've all got magic objects. They're trying to get rid of a curse that means that if they go past a certain place, sail past a certain place, female members of their family will die. It's just really good. You don't feel like you're reading a middle grade. I think it could appeal to anybody. Excuse me. The third one is out in February, on February the 4th for my birthday. I've pre-ordered it ready. That's how much I love it. Number 7 on the list was Inside Out and Back Again by Thana Lee. This is looking at telling the story of a refugee who comes across to our country, and her family and herself are trying to fit in. So they're struggling to fit in just in the street where they are. She's struggling to fit into school. And it's just describing that, and it's done really well. I think every child should read that book. It was very, very special. It's told in verse, but not rhyming verse. It was just easy to read. It's how I would imagine a child to speak, just really shorthand. It was really good. Number 6 on the list was The Confession by Jessie Burton. I found out about this through the book taster. I won a book taster box on Twitter, and through that you got to be in the Q&A with the author. So I got the book from the library, read it, loved it. It gave me EVELYN HUGO vibes about this writer, almost made herself a hermit, a girl who doesn't know what happened to her mother, but finds out that this writer might hold the secret to what happened to her mum. So she approaches this writer, but not as herself, and befriends her, and it's how that all entails. Loved it. Jessie Burton was great on that Q&A. I actually, tomorrow night, I've got a Q&A with Anne-Marie Ryan. She wrote The Six Tales of Christmas, because I decided to purchase one of those boxes for myself for Christmas because I enjoyed the Q&A so much. Yeah, so I definitely want to read The Muse and the Miniaturist now that I've read that one. The next book was The Miracle on Ebenezer Street by Catherine Doyle. I am going to read this every Christmas now. It had enough of the Christmas Carol story to recognise that it is sort of a retelling, but it's not really, because it's just elements. The rest of it is definitely its own story about a little boy who wants to celebrate Christmas. His mum died 3 years ago, and since then his dad hasn't let them celebrate, and his nan is really keen to celebrate Christmas as well. There's a purple reindeer. That cover is absolutely beautiful. I cannot wait to read this with Sophie, and when she's maybe 7 or 8, that's what we're going to do. So yeah, every year for Christmas, that one. I read that for Lauren and the Books Christmas Patreon book club, and I loved it. I took part last night, and it was just a lovely time. It was just over an hour. We all discussed our thoughts on that. Then we all shared what we were going to do for Christmas and things that we're looking forward to for Christmas, and it was just really upbeat, because obviously things have changed now with the tier groups and things, and Christmas was meant to be 5 days bubbling. Now most people can only bubble for 1 day. Some people can't even bubble at all. So they recognised it was probably going to be a bit of a lonely Christmas for people, and they wanted to try and boost everybody for Christmas. So it was lovely. Number 4 on the list was Orion Lost by Alistair Chisholm. That's a middle grade. That was the top of the 12 books that I read for middle grade monthly. I loved it. It's a sci-fi middle grade. I am not into sci-fi at all. Space just freaks me out, but this book was just so good. I'm hoping he'll write another one. And I think last night, I think Jade's favourite was Alistair Chisholm's book. I think Gav's was the Michelle Harrison ones, A Pinch of Magic and Sprinkle of Sorcery, but his second was Orion Lost, so it was well up there. Third on my list is The Seven Husbands of EVELYN HUGO. Basically that, it talks through the 7 husbands in her life, and she's an interesting character. She talks about her friendship with her friend Celia. It's quite sad in parts, but really funny and upbeat in others. And it's a book that I don't reread at all very often, but it's a book that I wouldn't mind reading again. I listened to the audiobook. I can highly recommend listening to the audiobook. I think that's one of the reasons that I enjoyed it so much. So definitely want to read more Taylor Jenkins Reid. I really want to read Daisy Jones and the Six. I've got that on my list. Also, I think she wrote After I Do, and I've heard good things about that. So I want to read that one too. Second on my list was With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. That was a YA. Basically talks about food all the time. It's about a young black girl who's at, is it college or school? High school. She's got a little baby, and her nan looks after her baby for her while she goes to school, and she basically wants to be a chef, and it's seeing how she goes about that while studying, while looking after her baby, while navigating relationships, and it's just a lovely story. This is another one that I listened to on audiobook. I think I listened to it through Borrow Box at my library, and I can recommend the audiobook again. The author herself reads it, and she's got a lovely voice. So yeah, loved that one. And my number one of the year was The Shelf by Helly Acton. I just love the premise of this book. It's basically a girl who thinks that her boyfriend, I think she thinks he's going to propose to her. So she turns up for this meal, and then he dumps her. But not only has she been dumped, she's been dumped on camera and sent into a house with a load of other women who have also been dumped by the partner. And this show is meant to make them into better girlfriend or marriage material. It's very tongue-in-cheek. You can tell it's not meant to be that way, but it is, looking at how women are treated and what is expected of them in relationships. And it's just a Big Brother style house, and they have to do different tasks and things. But it's lovely seeing all these women come together instead of being bitchy. It was just a great read. I laughed. I was shocked in some parts. It just was a feel-good read. I just enjoyed it so much. So I could highly recommend that book. So they are my top for this year. I've been so grateful. All of those books were wonderful. So yeah, and there's quite a few of them that I would reread, even though I'm not really a rereader. But it'd have to be a few years, I think, before I went again. But yeah, I'm chuffed. Quite a few were from the library, a few that I'd bought myself, a couple on Audible and Scribd. Most of them were physically read, and then a few audio and a few ebook. But yeah, I think it's been a successful year, and I probably have talked about these in my wrap-up videos for the month. So if you wanted to know what I thought about them, I know we only started on BookTube in September, so if I read them in September, October, November, or this month, you will see a wrap-up of them. So go and check those out. And like I said, the middle grade monthly ones, I reviewed them in Vlogmas Day 19, so go and check that out. And this is the end of Vlogmas Day 21, and I will see you tomorrow for Vlogmas 22. Bye!